Cell structure and functions. In the cell, we have studied about the cell membrane, the structure of the cell membrane proposed by Singer and Nicholson, called as the fluid mosaic model, which explains the electron microscopic structure of the cell membrane, plasma membrane. Then also we have studied about the cell, the composition of the cell wall, where in different plants we find the presence of cellulose, hemicellulose, pectin, lignin, suberin, cutin, etc. So like that various chemicals are deposited in the cell wall. So now about the cell organelles, the structure and functions. So main we are studying about the functions of the cell organelles. So in a cell, if we take a typical cell, plant cell or a animal cell, we are having different organelles. So the nucleus is present. Suppose if you take this as the plant cell, there is a large vacuole and this is the nucleus, and in addition to the nucleus there are the endoplasmic reticulum, which forms a network of membranes in the cytoplasm. So the endoplasmic reticulum, so one by one when we study the organelles and their function, so endoplasmic reticulum, which is briefly written as ER, it is a network of tubular branched membranous structures connecting the cell membrane and the nucleus. So this endoplasmic reticulum is dividing the cytoplasm into compartments, so which helps in the distribution of the various reactions, biochemical reactions which takes place in the cell. So that is the main occurrence in the cell. Now there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum based on whether ribosomes are present or ribosomes are absent. So smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. So rough endoplasmic reticulum, it is the endoplasmic reticulum which is having the ribosomes. So if ribosomes are present on the surface of the endoplasmic reticulum, so it is called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. So due to the presence of the ribosomes on the outer surface of the membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum, the endoplasmic reticulum appears to be rough, and that is why it is called as rough endoplasmic reticulum. So when the ribosomes are absent, so there is merely the membrane which is present in the endoplasmic reticulum, so it is smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now the difference between these two is due to the presence of the ribosomes. Ribosomes are the protein factories of the cell. They are the organelles which synthesize proteins in the cell. So that is why the rough endoplasmic reticulum will get or will be available with the ribosomes, and that is why the function of this rough endoplasmic reticulum is it helps in the transportation or the storage of the endoplasmic reticulum. So that means rough endoplasmic reticulum is involved in protein synthesis, and those proteins are provided to the necessary parts of the cell. And also the rough endoplasmic reticulum helps in the secretion of certain substances in the cell. So it may be hormones or it may be any other substances which are to be needed in the cell. That is the function of the rough endoplasmic reticulum. That means it helps in the protein synthesis and secretion. Now smooth, as there are no ribosomes, so definitely it will not involve in protein synthesis. So it will be involved in lipid synthesis instead, and also it will be involved in the function in the synthesis of certain steroid hormones, not all hormones, hormones which are steroid, particularly the sex hormones. So those are secreted by the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So that is about the endoplasmic reticulum, which is a network of tubular structures, so that forms the membranes, and it is irregularly scattered in the cytoplasm. So there is no particular shape or the appearance or the location in the cell. So from the nucleus to the cell membrane, in all directions, in any direction, it is scattered. And already mentioned that the endoplasmic reticulum divides the cytoplasm into small compartments, and in each compartment a specific type of biochemical reaction will be taking place. So that is about endoplasmic reticulum. Then if we come to another important organelle, which is called as the Golgi complex. So Golgi complex, Golgi bodies, they are named after an Italian scientist called as Camillo Golgi. Now this Golgi complex is also similar to endoplasmic reticulum, but it is freely present in the cytoplasm, but not connecting the cell membrane or the nucleus. But endoplasmic reticulum connects the cell membrane and the nucleus, and because of that connection or the attachment, it also helps in the transport of the proteins or certain substances from the cell membrane to the nucleus. But Golgi complex is also membranous, and it is somewhat arc shaped, somewhat parallel to the nuclear membrane. So it is close to the nucleus. So it is made up of flat membranous hollow structures, and these membranous hollow structures which are present, so they are called as the cisternae. So these are referred as cisternae or flattened sac-like structures like this. So these are arranged one above the other, and they are parallel to the nucleus. So this Golgi complex is made up of such membranes which are arranged one above the other in the form of stacks, and they are of different size. They are not of same size. Almost they are same size, and they may differ in their size. So these flattened structures are called as the cisternae, and sometimes from these cisternae there are structures which are called as vesicles. So this is the vesicle, and this is called as a tubule. So when we go to the more information or the detailed structure of the Golgi complex, we can say that the Golgi complex can be differentiated into vesicles, tubules, and cisternae. But the cisternae are the main structures which are present in the Golgi complex. So this Golgi complex helps in packaging the materials like proteins. So the proteins which are synthesized by the ribosomes of the endoplasmic reticulum, so those proteins are packed. So the packaging material of the proteins is done by the endoplasmic reticulum. In addition to this, it also helps in secretion. So there are certain substances which are secreted, and also it helps in the formation of the glycoproteins and the glycolipids. These are transported, and the Golgi complex helps in the lipid transport also. So other than this, so these are some basic functions which we can mention. So it helps in the packaging materials like proteins. This is one important, and it helps in the formation of glycoproteins and glycolipids, and it helps in the lipid transports, and also the lysosomes which are present, one of the organelles, they are formed from the Golgi complex. So the lysosomes originate from the Golgi complex, and they remain freely in the cytoplasm. So we will be studying the function of lysosome in the next part of this chapter. So these are some basic functions. In addition to this, there are other functions which we can mention, but they are specific to certain organs of some species. For example, it helps in the secretion of hormones. So in certain glands or in certain organs, glandular structures, the Golgi complex will secrete the secretions and help in the secretion of the hormones or some other materials. And also Golgi complex has another important function, especially in higher organisms and especially in the animals. For example, if you take human beings alone, so in this human beings, the sperms which are produced, the male gametes which are produced, that male gamete or the sperm, it is having a structure called as acrosome, which is a cap-like structure. So that acrosome is actually produced by the Golgi complex. So the Golgi gives rise to the acrosome, which is essential during fertilization. So if there is no acrosome, fertilization will not be successful. That is why Golgi complex, in case of the formation of sperms of higher organisms like animals, so there the Golgi complex helps in the formation of the acrosome. So that is about the function of the Golgi complex. So structurally they are almost close to the nucleus, arranged in parallel membranous flattened structures called as cisternae, with having tubules and vesicles. That is about the Golgi complex. Now if you come to the lysosomes, so lysosomes are mostly present in the animal cells, rarely in the plant cells, but we cannot say that they are completely absent, but they are necessary for the functions in the animal cells. So lysosomes are so called, lyso means split, break. So the lysosomes are very simple in structure. They are just made up of a simple membrane, and in this lysosome there is no any important structure. Just like how the endoplasmic reticulum are made up of membranes, Golgi is also made. So these are small bag-like structures, and they are originated from the Golgi complex. So they originate from the Golgi complex. So lysosomes are born from the Golgi complex. Golgi complex gives rise to the lysosomes. So these lysosomes contain enzymes which are called as hydrolytic enzymes. So these enzymes are nothing but proteins. Already I mentioned that the proteins are stored as packaging material in the Golgi. So some proteins which function like enzymes, especially those group of enzymes which are hydrolytic enzymes, so those hydrolytic enzymes are present in the lysosomes. So structurally lysosome is very simple. It is a small bag-like structure made up of a enclosed, made up of a membrane enclosing the hydrolytic enzymes. So these hydrolytic enzymes, they help in digestion, and also they help in the removal of the waste material. That means excretion. That is the main function of this hydrolytic enzymes. Now these hydrolytic enzymes are very active at acidic pH. That means they require a particular pH in the mediums, in the cell, for example. So in the cell at acidic pH they are very active, and they function, they are involved in the digestion and also the removal of the waste materials from the cell. And they also digest the excess or the worn out organelles which are present. So the unnecessary, the organelles which are not needed, so they are digested, and even the food particles which are present in the cell, they are digested, especially in certain animals or organisms where the food vacuole is present. Food is stored in vacuoles. That food is digested by the help of hydrolytic enzymes, and these lysosomes also help in the engulfing the viruses or some pathogenic bacteria which are present in the cell. That is the function of the lysosomes. So lysosomes is necessary for removing excess or worn out organelles in the cell. and the function of the lysosome is also attributed to the disappearance of the tail, especially in the tadpole. So if we just have a basic idea of how the frog's egg develops into frog, how the embryo development, or in other words the embryogenesis we call it as, so how the embryo development takes place in frog. So after fertilization, the frog's egg develops into a larval stage called as a tadpole. So that tadpole is aquatic and it is having a tail and it is having gills, it is having a circular mouth, and then this tadpole undergoes metamorphosis to become or to transform into frog, a young frog. Now here the question is, now in the tadpole there is a tail, but in the frog there is no tail. Now the tail is disappeared. Now the tail is not cut off, or it is not removed completely, but the tail goes on decreasing by the action of the lysosomes from the tip of the tail. So the tail which is present as the tadpole gets transformed, undergoes metamorphosis to form the frog, the tail decreases in size, because at the tip of the tail the lysosomes activity will start when the metamorphosis takes place, and this tail goes on decreasing, and at the base of the tail, when the tail completely disappears, and at the almost at this stage the frog is formed with the two pairs of limbs and well developed jaws. The gills are transformed into the lungs, and thus metamorphosis takes place. So that is the disappearance of the tail in the tadpole when it gets transformed into frog is attributed to the activity of the lysosomes. So that means in the frog the tail is not necessary, because it will be having limbs. So with the help of limbs it will be having the locomotion in water and as well as land. But in the case of tadpole, the tail was necessary for the locomotion in the water. This is the action of the lysosomes in different examples. That is one common example which we can mention, where the lysosomes are having its activity. So that is about the lysosomes. And next about the vacuole. So vacuole is present only in plant cells, and in animal cells it is present very rare. If it is present in animal cells, it is very small. In case of plant cell, the vacuole is very large, to such an extent that it occupies nearly 90% of the cell area inside. So that means more than 75 up to 90% of the cytoplasmic area is occupied by the vacuole. Around this vacuole, the cytoplasm and other cell organelles, including the nucleus, is present. That is the importance in the plant cell. But in animal cell, vacuoles are rarely present, and if present, they are very small and used and having different functions. Then this vacuole is surrounded by a membrane. This membrane is called as tonoplast. The membrane surrounding the vacuole, whether it is small or large, that membrane is called as a tonoplast. So this tonoplast membrane is having specific functions. It involves in active transport. It conducts the movement of the materials against concentration gradient, and that is between the cytoplasm and the vacuole, the cavity of the vacuole. That is the function of the tonoplast. So the function of the vacuole is it stores various materials. So it may be food material in the form of starch, it may be any other materials, and this vacuoles, they also store certain carbohydrates and also store certain inorganic and organic nutrients in it. and in certain cases this vacuole helps in excretion. Now especially in amoeba, if you remember the structure of the amoeba, in the amoeba there is a vacuole which we label as contractile vacuole. This contractile vacuole helps in excretion, removal of the waste materials. So here actually what happens, the excretory material or the waste is stored in the vacuole, which we call it as a contractile vacuole. So that contractile vacuole will be sent out from the cell, and that is how the excreta or the excretory wastes are removed from the cell. And in certain other microbes, there are certain food vacuoles which we have already mentioned when the lysosomes. So the food vacuoles, they store food material, and these food which is present, it is actually formed by engulfing from the outer side. Suppose when the food molecule is present on the outer side, the cell membrane will engulf that food material, and it will be taken inside, or in other words it will be engulfed into the cell, and that forms the food vacuole. That food which is present in the vacuole is later digested by the action of the lysosomes. That is how the lysosomes are involved in digestion. The food vacuoles, they are stored in the food material. This is about the structure of the vacuole. So other organelles like mitochondria, plastids, and other structures are also present. Suppose when we take about mitochondria, and then we shall take about the plastids. So mitochondria are also important organelles which are present in the cell. They are present in all plant cells and animal cells. So mitochondria were first discovered by a scientist called as Kolliker. So he actually named them as the dictyosomes, and later they were called as mitochondria. Now mitochondria are freely present in the cytoplasm. So these mitochondria, they are present in all cells, living cells, eukaryotes, but not in prokaryotes. So already when we mention about the prokaryotes, we have mentioned that in prokaryotes the mitochondria, Golgi complex, and endoplasmic reticulum are absent. So these mitochondria, the number of the mitochondria in a cell, when we observe the number, or when we come to know the number of the mitochondria, they are present in cells which are having more physiological activity, especially in the muscle cells in human being or any animals. So in the muscles which work more, especially the skeletal muscles. So when we study the more anatomical structure of a muscle cell, the skeletal muscles are having maximum number of mitochondria than any other cell, where there are thousands of mitochondria freely distributed in the cytoplasm, but very few mitochondria in other cells like epithelial cells or even in plant cells. But mitochondria is necessary for all living cells of eukaryotes. So mitochondria is having different shapes actually. So it may be rod shaped, or it may be oval shaped or elliptical shaped like this. A single mitochondrion. Mitochondria is actually plural. So mitochondrion is single. So sometimes they are cylindrical shape, or rod shape, or elliptical shape. So mitochondria is surrounded by an outer membrane and inner membrane. So this is the outer membrane. Now the inner membrane is having many folds like this. So these folds are projecting into the cavity of the mitochondria, and these folds, this is the inner membrane, and these folds are called as cristae. So cristae is plural, crista single. So the outer and inner membrane, in between there is a minute space that is called as a perimitochondrial space. So this space, that means the two membranes are not almost in contact. There is a minute space in between which is called as the perimitochondrial space. And inside the mitochondria we are having a fluid which is called as matrix. So this matrix is a fluid almost similar to cytoplasm but differs in some composition. Now this matrix contains enzymes, ribosomes. So see the ribosomes which are present in the rough endoplasmic reticulum, they are also present inside the mitochondria. So there are ribosomes, there are enzymes, and there are fragments of DNA and RNA. So because of this DNA and RNA, there is also protein synthesis taking place inside the mitochondria. So ribosomes are involved in the protein synthesis. So because of the presence of ribosomes and these mitochondria, they synthesize their own proteins. That is why they are referred as semi-autonomous organelles. So these semi-autonomous organelles means they are partially depending on the other parts of the cell. So they are to some extent, partially, they are self dependent, means they do not depend on others. That is why they are referred as the semi-autonomous organelles of the cell. So the semi-autonomous organelles, they are so called because of the due to the presence of their own DNA. So this DNA involving with RNA synthesize the proteins in ribosomes. So this mitochondria does not depend for proteins on the other parts of the cell. That is why they are semi-autonomous. But however, they require certain other materials, but not completely independent. So this is about the mitochondria, outer membrane, inner membrane, perimitochondrial space, cristae. Cristae are finger-like projections, folds, which are projecting into the matrix of the mitochondrion. Then to give some more information about this mitochondria, actually on the surface of the cristae there are small nail-like structures. So these small nail-like structures which are present on the cristae, so they are called as the Racker's particles, or they are also called as elementary particles. So F1 particles, they are also called as Racker's particles, named after a scientist called as Racker. So Racker's particles or elementary particles or F1 particles. So they are small nail-like structures arranged on the surface of the cristae, and these Racker's particles they are involved in the cellular respiration. So that means the only function of the mitochondria is cellular respiration. But when we studied about endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi and lysosomes, they are having several functions. But mitochondria are having a single important function, that is cellular respiration. Now during cellular respiration, which takes place, so cellular respiration, which we will be studying in the plant physiology. So this respiration takes place in mitochondria, and especially this respiration involves the steps. So it involves the 3 steps when we go into that process. So one step takes place in the matrix, the other 2 steps takes place in the Racker's particles on the surface of the cristae. So after completion of this respiration, energy is produced, and that energy is stored in the form of ATP in mitochondria. So that is why mitochondria which conduct cellular respiration, they produce energy, they store energy in the form of ATP, hence they are called as the powerhouses of the cell. So they contain energy. So whenever, whichever part of the cell requires energy, that energy is provided by the mitochondria. So in bacteria, if you remember, their mitochondria are absent. The function of the mitochondria is performed by mesosomes, the inner folds of the cell membrane. That is why the mitochondria are called as the powerhouses of the cell. Now these mitochondria, whenever a cell divides, suppose if there are 100 mitochondria and well the cell divides into two, so 50 and 50 mitochondria almost will be shared between the two daughter cells. But actually what happens during cell division, the mitochondria will increase in number by a process called as fission. Means they split, each mitochondria will split into two and they become double in number. So that when the cell divides and form two daughter cells, so there will be no scarcity or there will be no deficiency of mitochondria. In other words, there will be no reduction in the number of mitochondria. So the pre-existing mitochondria, by fission, they will divide and increase in number. That is about the structure of the mitochondria. So mitochondria are called as the powerhouses of the cell. They conduct cellular respiration, which is the function, the only important function of mitochondria. And they during that cellular respiration, energy is produced and energy is stored in the form of ATP. Hence they are called as the powerhouses of the cell. They provide energy to any part of the cell wherever it is required. That is about mitochondria. Then if you come to the plastids, so plastids are present only in plant cell, not in animal cell. So these, as we mentioned in vacuoles are present only in plant cell. They are very large. But in animals, they are absent usually. If present, they are very small. But in plastids, when we take, they are present only in plant cells. So these plastids, which are present in plant cells, based on they contain pigments actually. They are also made up of membranes, just like mitochondria. They are having different shapes. Usually mitochondria are rod shaped, cylindrical or somewhat oval, elliptical in shape. But chloroplast is of different shapes. It may be spherical or it may be lens shaped, shape of a lens, or it may be oval shaped, or it may be exact ball like spherical, or sometimes it may be disc like flat, or sometimes it may be a strip like or a ribbon like, we can say. That is the shape of the plastids. So plastids, they contain pigments. Based on the type of the pigments, there are three types of plastids. So one type of plastids is chloroplasts, is one type of plastids, and chromoplasts is another type of plastids, and there is one more type which is called as leucoplasts. So chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, that is why they are called as chloroplasts, and they also contain pigments which are called as carotenoids. Certain carotenoids are also present, plus chlorophyll is present. So if a plastid contains chlorophyll and certain carotenoids, it is chloroplast. Now if the plastid contains xanthophyll and pigments like what are called as carotene, which are similar to carotenoids to some extent. So if the plastid contains xanthophyll and carotene, it is called as chromoplast. Suppose if there are no pigments at all, so it does not contain any pigment, so no pigments are there, so they are colorless plastids, in other words. So when plastids contain chlorophyll or and carotenoids, it is green in color, and whereas chromoplast, they contain xanthophyll and other pigments like carotene, so it is yellow or some the blue color or sometimes red color, like this brown color. So that is chromoplasts. Whereas leucoplasts, they don't contain. Example, in roots, when we take, there are leucoplasts. In leaves appear green color because there are chloroplasts. The cells of the leaf, they contain chloroplasts, chlorophyll. In other leaves, sometimes when we see there are yellow leaves, brown or sometimes reddish leaves, so they contain chromoplasts with various types of pigments. In roots we don't find any pigments, so that is why there are leucoplasts. So these are the three types of plastids which we can come across. Now if we take a typical plastid, so a typical plastid contains surrounded by two membranes, just like the mitochondria. So there is the outer membrane and inner membrane. So the outer and inner membrane are entire. There are no any folds. That is the difference between mitochondria. So this is the outer membrane and this is the inner membrane. So these outer and inner membranes, they are also having a space in between, just like mitochondria. But in mitochondria there is folds of the inner membrane, but here we don't find any folds. So this space between the inner and outer membrane is called as the periplastidial space. Here we refer as the perimitochondrial space. Here it is periplastidial space. And in the in the plastids, here if you take, there is a fluid which is called as stroma. The fluid of mitochondria is called as matrix, but the fluid of plastid or a chloroplast, if you take, it is stroma. So the stroma also contains, same as that of the matrix, the stroma contains the ribosomes, there are enzymes, there are DNA and RNA fragments. Similarly in the matrix also there are ribosomes, there are enzymes, there are DNA, RNA fragments. In the stroma also there are DNA, RNA fragments with the proteins, in the enzymes and ribosomes. So this is the stroma, and in the stroma there are important structures, the structural units of this. So these units are called as thylakoids. So thylakoids are flat disc-like membranous hollow structures which are arranged one above the other. So these thylakoids, so this is a thylakoid. So a thylakoid is a hollow membranous flat disc-like structure, and these thylakoids are almost the same size. So when we remember about Golgi complex, so here also they are flat membranous arranged one above the other. But in Golgi, those cisternae or those flat structures, they are of different size which are arranged one above the other. So in the this thylakoid, the thylakoids are just like the piles of a coins, a pile of coins. Means when we arrange coins one above the other, in the same way the thylakoids are arranged one above the other in this stroma. Now this group of thylakoids, each group of thylakoids is called as granum. So plural is grana. So this is one granum. So like that there are many grana distributed in the stroma. Suppose this is another granum, this is another granum, and this is another granum which is present in the stroma. Now this is one granum. So these are the thylakoids which are arranged in the granum. So the grana which are present freely, they are again connected to each other. A thylakoid of one granum and is connected to another, to the granum, to the thylakoid of another gram, like this. So this is how the connection takes place. This is connected to another thylakoid like this. So these structures are called as stroma lamellae. So these membranous tubular connections which are connecting between the thylakoids of different grana. So the thylakoid of one granum and the thylakoid of another granum is connected by tubular membranous structures which are called as stroma lamellae. So these stroma lamellae, they form a network within the chloroplast or this plastid, and means in the stroma of the plastid, and they appear like they form a network inside the stroma. Then in the the thylakoids there is the chlorophyll. So chlorophyll pigment is present in the thylakoids. So chlorophyll is present in the thylakoids and also in the stroma lamellae here, but not in the stroma. So this stroma, which is a fluid, the matrix of the plastid, it is a fluid structure only which contains ribosomes, enzymes, RNA and DNA fragments. But the chlorophyll is present only in the thylakoids and the stroma lamellae. So the chlorophyll pigment is present, and this granum which is made up of thylakoids, a single granum is made up of a stack or pile of thylakoids. So these are arranged one above the other. In a single granum there are about 25 to 40 thylakoids. Actually, when we come to the number of the thylakoids in a granum, each granum contains in an average of 25 to 40 thylakoids. Rarely there may be more than 40, less than 25, but very less. But more common when we see the number of the thylakoids is 25 to 40 in a single granum. That is the number of the thylakoids. And the number of the grana in each chloroplast of a plant, a species, again that is constant. The number of grana in a chloroplast or a plastid is constant for a species. Now constant means there are certain parts which are very constant. For example, if we look about the chromosomes, the number of chromosomes in a human being, there are 46 chromosomes. That means whether it is male, female, or whether it is an individual of young age, middle age, old age, or of any race means of any country. He may be an European race or a Tibetan race or even any American race or Indian African race. So any human race it may be. So all human beings, they contain 46 chromosomes. That means the number of the chromosomes is constant for human being. But similarly, the number of grana in a chloroplast is constant for a species. So that means that is about the structure of the chloroplast. So the function of the chloroplast means it depends upon the pigment. So this chloroplast, when it contains chlorophyll, definitely it involves in photosynthesis, which is the only function of the chloroplast. But mitochondria, the only function is cellular respiration, produce energy, store energy. So chloroplast, it contains chlorophyll and it will produce it will involve the means the assimilation of the food, the formation of the food, synthesis of the food using light and carbon dioxide by photosynthesis. So chloroplasts are involved in photosynthesis, but chromoplasts are not involved in photosynthesis because they contain some other pigments. Leucoplasts, as there are no pigments, they are purely storage in function, means they are involved in storage function. That is the function of this chloroplasts, which are present in only plant cells. Now when we come to the other organelles, which are some minor organelles of not more important structure, ribosomes. So ribosomes are called as the protein factories of the cell. That is, so ribosomes, they are non-membranous structures, means they are not made up of any membrane. Means when we draw a ribosome, it is not a surrounding by any membrane. But however, ribosomes are made up of some material, but they are not surrounded by membrane. Suppose this is a ribosome. So this ribosome appears as a small granule in a normal microscope. But when the ultrastructure of the ribosome is studied, ribosome is made up of two parts, two units we can say, a large unit and a small unit. So there is one small unit and when there is a large unit. So this smaller unit and this is the larger unit of the ribosome. But though they appear as a small particle. Now this ribosome contains protein and RNA. So what ribosomes contain is they contain only proteins and RNA. They are involved in protein synthesis, the only function of ribosome, and they are made up of large unit and small unit. Now these ribosomes, based on the how they are, the size of the ribosome, we can say, in what size they are. So the size of the ribosome is actually measured by the help of sedimentation coefficient. So there are different type of ribosomes in the prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So this sediment, they are measured, the size of the ribosome is measured by sedimentation coefficient of that ribosome. So this sedimentation coefficient is measured in the centrifuge, and this sedimentation coefficient is measured in terms of Swedberg units. So this is a unit of ribosome which is written as S. So that is why in case of prokaryotes there are 70 S ribosomes. In case of eukaryotes there are 80 S ribosomes. So when we are writing 70S and 80S, it refers to the Swedberg units. It is the sedimentation coefficient of the ribosome which is measured in the centrifuge, that is usually the size of the ribosome. So ribosomes are measured in terms of sedimentation coefficient by Swedberg units. So when we write 70S ribosome, it means it is the size of the ribosome in terms of Swedberg units. So there are different types of ribosomes like 70S and 80S. So this ribosomes are involved only in the protein synthesis. That is about the ribosomes. Then when we come to the other organelles, for example, like the cilia and the flagella. So the certain cells are having cilia and flagella. So these cilia are small hair-like structures projecting from the cell membrane of the cell. So the cilia is a small hair-like structure. A flagella is a long thread-like structure. So the difference between cilia and flagella is of the size, but the chemical composition is same. There is no any difference in the chemical composition. Means structurally they are same, having the same parts, but only thing in the size. Cilia are very small projections, small hair-like structures, whereas flagella are long thread-like structures. So these flagella or this cilia, they are having a structure which is called as the axoneme. Now suppose this is the cilia or the flagella. So it is having an axoneme, a structure inside. Now this axoneme has 9 pairs of doublets of microtubules which are present inside. So there are 9 pairs of doublets of the microtubules which are present in the center of the cilia or the flagella, and there is a pair of centrally located microtubules. Now in the center there is a pair of microtubules. Now around that there are 9 pairs of doublets, that means in pairs. So there are 18 in other words. So microtubules are present, and that forms the axoneme of the cilia and the flagella. And the function, we know that they help in locomotion. Flagella, especially in some organisms like Euglena, it helps in the locomotion. Certain bacteria are also having flagella. which helps in locomotion. Cilia, they are present in permeatium and also in ciliated epithelium. There are cilia. So there also it helps in the movement. So in ciliated epithelium, it helps in the movement of the materials. But in permeatium, it helps in the locomotion of the cell. That is how the cilia and the flagella are helping in both. And similarly, another structure which is called as a centrosome. So this centrosome is another organelle which is present only in the animal cell. As we say, plastids are present only in plant cell. Similarly, centrosomes are also present only in the animal cell. So here the centrosome, it is only single which is present in the near the nucleus. So suppose this is a centrosome which is present in a animal cell. So this centrosome which is present near the nucleus, it is also a non-membranous organelle like ribosome. It is not surrounded by any membrane. Now suppose this is the centrosome which is present here inside. So this centrosome, which is made up of a amorphous material which is somewhat dark colored, and it is usually proteinaceous in chemical composition. So this is the material which is present, and actually this structure is called as centrosphere. Now in this centrosphere, there are two cylindrical structures arranged perpendicular to each other. So suppose this is one cylindrical structure and this is another one. Now each structure is called as centriole. So there are two centrioles. There is a pair of centriole. So a pair of centrioles are present in a centrosome. So this is the centrosome body containing the centrioles which are in pair arranged perpendicular to each other. Centrioles are cylindrical hollow structures which are present in a material, in a dark amorphous proteinaceous material referred as the centrosphere. Now each centriole contains microtubules like cilia and flagella. So this cilia and centrosomes are same, but structurally there are slight difference. In centrosome or in the centriole, what happens? The microtubules are arranged in triplets. In cilia and flagella, the microtubules are in doublets of 9 pairs. There are 9 pairs of doublets. So these 9 pairs of doublets which are present. Here there are triplets, 9 triplets there are present in the centrosome. So this 9 microtubules which are present in the groups of 3 triplets there. So totally there are 27 microtubules with the this present there. And in the center there is the central microtubule, and that is the structure of the centriole. Now the function of the centriole or the function of the centrosome is particularly in the cell division. So in animal cells, the spindle fibers which are produced by mitosis or during mitosis or meiosis, it is by the centrioles or the centrosomes. So during cell division, what happens? The centrioles, they arrange at the polar ends of the cell, and when they arrange at the polar ends, they form asters and they produce the spindle fibers and help in the cell division. But in plant cells, the centrosomes or centrioles are absent. The cytoplasm itself will produce the spindle fibers. So centrioles, they help in the formation of the mitotic apparatus during the cell division. And there is one more important structure in a cell which is called as cytoskeleton. So this cytoskeleton is a network of filamentous proteinaceous structures. So certain proteins which are fibrous, which are in the form of filaments, they are freely distributed in the cell, and these filaments, suppose these are the filaments, So these filaments, which are freely distributed, they form a network in the cytoplasm. So these proteins or the filaments structures which form the network, so they give a kind of mechanical support, or they give a kind of shape to that cell. So they maintain the cell shape, or they help in the motility of the cell sometimes. That is what is called as cytoskeleton. So cytoskeleton is a network of filamentous proteinaceous structures which are present freely in the cytoplasm and helps in the mechanical support, motility, and also in the maintenance of the cell shape. That is about the this cytoskeleton. And so these are some important cell organelles which are present in the cell. So in this we should remember ribosomes and centrosomes are the non-membranous. So the remaining all we have what we have studied, like Golgi, the endoplasmic reticulum, this ribosome, the lysosomes, mitochondria, the plastids, all they are membranous structures. And one more important organelle is the nucleus and the chromosomes which are present in the cell, so which we will take in the next part of this chapter.